Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. What happened at 4:07 p.m. on a silent Tuesday afternoon is something I still replay in my head like a crime scene clip. I didn't knock. I didn't call. I just turned the doorknob because it was my house. But when the door creaked open, what I saw on the other side wasn't a forgotten package or a spilled coffee mug. It was a woman I'd never met, holding my wife's suitcase and saying words that made my ears ring. "She's leaving with me." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My eyes darted past the stranger's shoulder to the living room, where my wife, Sienna, stood frozen beside our bookshelf, like a student caught cheating mid-exam. I blinked. Once. Twice. The woman turned, clearly expecting someone else. When she saw me, really saw me, she went pale. Not in a scared way. No, this was guilt. The kind that clings to your skin like smoke. Let me back up. Just an hour earlier, I'd been at my desk on the 12th floor of a hospital tech office, rerouting printer queues and daydreaming about dinner. I wasn't supposed to be home early, but my manager let us go after the system upgrade finished ahead of schedule. I thought I'd surprise Sienna with her favorite Thai food. I parked outside our townhouse, noticed an unfamiliar silver Lexus in the driveway, and figured it belonged to a neighbor. I didn't think much of it. I really didn't. I was humming some stupid jingle when I opened the front door and walked straight into the single most disorienting scene of my life. No screaming, no explanations, just three people locked in a triangle of silence. Me, Sienna, and her. I should have said something smart, something sharp, but all I could manage was, "What's going on?" Sienna didn't answer. The woman did. She said, "I told her you wouldn't take it well. Maybe you should sit down." I didn't sit. I didn't breathe. I just watched as my wife, who had cried over plant funerals and canceled weekend plans, tightened her grip on her suitcase and walked toward the door without saying a single word to me. Not sorry. Not goodbye. Not even my name. That was the moment I knew I'd been erased long before I opened that door. It had been a quiet couple of days. No arguments. No tension. Just that strange, fake peace people talk about before tornadoes hit. My wife, Celia, had been oddly cheerful all weekend, humming around the house, fixing things that didn't need fixing, wearing lipstick to do the dishes. I should have seen it for what it was, her goodbye in slow motion. Tuesday afternoon, I left work early after a systems crash shut down our entire department. I didn't text her to say I was coming home. Honestly, I thought I'd beat her to dinner, maybe surprise her by finally fixing the loose kitchen drawer she always complained about. Instead, I ended up fixing my eyes on something I can never unsee. When I turned the key and walked in, I heard voices. Two. One was hers. The other? A woman's. Confident. Low. Like she owned the place. My stomach flipped, but I kept walking, like my body wasn't connected to my brain. Then I heard the words. So casually spoken, like they were planning a lunch date. "She's leaving with me." The voice was right on the other side of the door. I opened it. Standing in my living room was a woman I'd never seen before. She was tall, dressed in a dark green coat, holding my wife's overnight bag. Celia was sitting on the edge of the couch like she'd just heard someone died, or maybe like she wanted someone to. Her eyes darted to mine, and for a second, I thought she might burst into tears. But she didn't. The stranger turned, expecting someone else, I think. When she saw me, her face drained of color. I've never seen someone go pale that fast without losing blood. She stepped aside like I was the one intruding. Celia stood up and said, "Will, I wasn't expecting you." No apology. No explanation. That's when it hit me. Not just that she was leaving, but that she'd already left. Emotionally. Mentally. She'd packed that bag hours before I even left work. I asked who the woman was. Celia didn't answer. The woman did. "I'm Rowan. We met at the climate retreat last fall." I blinked. The what? Celia never told me she went to a climate retreat. Rowan walked to the door, holding the handle like she couldn't wait to escape the awkwardness. Celia followed her, brushing past me like I was a ghost. Her suitcase rolled behind her with a soft click, click, click. She paused only once, at the door, and said, "Don't make this uglier than it needs to be." Then they were gone. No goodbye kiss. No, we need to talk. Just the click of the door shutting behind them. And I stood there, in my own house, trying to figure out how I missed the part where my wife fell in love with a woman named Rowan at a retreat I never even knew happened. What happened after that door slammed shut wasn't loud. It wasn't cinematic. It was quiet. Still, like a vacuum had sucked all the air out of the house. I just stood there for what felt like 10 full minutes, staring at the doorknob like it might turn back. It didn't. And in that silence, I realized something strange. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was confused. Hollow. Like I'd walked into someone else's life mid-meltdown and didn't know whose side I was on. The house suddenly felt foreign. Our pictures on the wall looked staged. Even the coffee table, where her stupid mug with "Boss Lady" printed on it still sat half full, felt like a prop in some poorly written play. I walked over to it, picked it up, and dumped it into the sink without thinking. The clink it made hitting the porcelain echoed too loud in the kitchen. I sat down at the dining table, staring at my phone. I wanted to call someone, anyone. But who do you call when your wife walks out the door with another woman and you didn't even know they knew each other? My mom. She'd just cry and blame me. My brother? He'd tell me to hit the gym and reclaim my dignity. A friend? I didn't really have those anymore. Celia always said we didn't need couple friends because we had enough going on. Guess that was her polite way of keeping me isolated. That's when it hit me. I didn't even know how long it had been going on. I didn't know if it started at that fake climate retreat or earlier. Were there signs? Probably. I was just too numb or naive to see them. Maybe both. Then the doorbell rang. My heart stopped. For a second, I thought maybe she'd come back to explain, or at least say goodbye like a decent human being. But when I opened the door, it wasn't her. It was Rowan. Alone. She looked nervous. Less confident than before. No coat now. Just jeans, a dark sweater, and this look in her eyes that was halfway between pity and panic. I just wanted to make sure you're okay, she said, like we were old friends. I didn't answer. I couldn't figure out if this was a guilt trip or some sort of weird power move. She kept talking. Celia didn't mean for it to happen like this. She wanted to talk to you last week, but I stopped her. Did you know I existed? She blinked. Of course. Then why didn't you knock? Silence. That's all I needed to hear. I closed the door. Not slammed. Just firm. I wasn't ready to hear her reasons. Her voice through the wood sounded muffled as she said, "You deserve the truth." No, I didn't. I deserved loyalty. But apparently, that wasn't part of the package deal anymore. I stood in the hallway for a long time after she left. Long enough for the hallway light to flicker out, for the cat to come sniff my shoe, and for the grief to finally catch up. And when it did, it didn't come as tears or rage. It came as a single thought. If she could leave like that, maybe she was never really mine to begin with. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think I even moved. I sat at the kitchen table until the first hints of morning light spilled across the floor, mixing with the cold blue glow of the fridge I forgot to close. I remember watching the clock change from 3:59 to 4 o'clock, like I was waiting for something, some sound, some knock, a key turning in the lock. Nothing came, not even a message. Just silence and that empty space in the bed we used to share. I kept wondering if she was sleeping soundly somewhere else, or if she even cared at all. I finally stood, knees stiff, back aching, and walked around the house like I was seeing it for the first time. Everything suddenly felt staged. Her slippers still near the couch, the charger she always forgot to unplug, her favorite scarf still draped on the hook. It wasn't just that she left. It's that she left like she wasn't coming back on purpose. That made it worse. Not the absence, but the intent. My mind kept looping through everything. The way she looked at me when I walked in. Not shocked. Not panicked. Just distant. Like she had already mourned me and moved on. And that woman, Rowan, her face when she saw me. She didn't expect me to be there. And she definitely didn't expect to feel bad about it. But there was something else in her expression, too. Not just guilt, hesitation. Like maybe Celia hadn't told her everything either. At 6:15 a.m., I cracked. I opened my laptop, signed into her email. We'd never had secrets like that, at least not until now. I used to know her password because I helped her set it up, Sunflower91. She changed it a few months ago to something I couldn't guess. That told me everything. But her tablet? That was still connected to our shared cloud account. I checked the calendar. There was a repeating event every Wednesday labeled Green Hour. For the past 6 months. Every week. Always from 5:30 to 7 p.m. I clicked on the location. It wasn't a yoga studio. It wasn't a park. It was a private loft downtown listed as Gallery 5C. My stomach dropped. That wasn't a group activity. That wasn't anything professional. That was a rendezvous spot. Intimate. Hidden. I zoomed out of the calendar and checked her notes app. One file caught my eye. 4H draft. I opened it, hands trembling. It was a letter. Howard, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't say it in person. I stopped. I couldn't keep reading. My brain already filled in the blanks. The classic, it's not you, it's me, but rewritten with fake depth and poetic flair. A breakup letter saved as a draft, never sent, because she didn't have to anymore. She left before it mattered. I backed away from the table and stared out the window. The city looked the same, but everything inside me had shifted. I realized the worst part wasn't that she left. It was that she planned it down to the hour. While I was scheduling dentist appointments and grocery runs, she was carving an exit strategy into her life and mine. The fourth day after Celia left, I found her scent on my pillow. Not some dramatic, floral perfume from a romance movie, just that faint trace of her shampoo, vanilla and almonds. And for a second, I swear I almost called out to her, like she'd just stepped into the bathroom. Then reality slapped me. She wasn't in the bathroom. She was probably in someone else's arms. Maybe Rowan's. Maybe someone else's. And I was here, alone, sitting on a bed that now felt way too big, trying to understand how I became a footnote in my own life. The letter I had found on her tablet haunted me. I still hadn't finished reading it. I'd only gotten through the first sentence before closing it like it burned my fingers. But that morning, I opened it again. I needed to know what she thought she couldn't say out loud. It read like a goodbye from someone halfway out the door for years. She talked about feeling unseen, unheard, like she was living someone else's dream. She said she tried to tell me, said I didn't listen, that I always changed the subject. But that wasn't true, was it? I used to ask her all the time if she was happy. She just smiled and said, I'm fine. I believed her. That's on me. But then she wrote something that twisted the knife. Rowan reminded me that I used to be bold, that I wasn't always afraid of living. That's when I knew it wasn't just about us. It was about the version of herself she missed. The one she apparently couldn't find while married to a guy who spent his weekends fixing garage shelves and comparing gas prices online. That guy was me. And apparently, he was the villain in her story. I closed the letter and felt this weird mix of sadness and shame, like I'd failed an exam I never knew I was taking. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my old college friend, Ezra. We hadn't spoken in almost a decade. He answered on the third ring, voice rough with sleep. I told him everything, every awkward detail, even the part where I stood frozen at the door while my wife walked out with another woman. He didn't laugh, didn't tell me to man up. He just said, man, that's brutal. You want to come stay here a few days? It almost made me cry, but I didn't go. I couldn't leave the house yet. Not because of her, but because I needed to see what else she left behind. And I'm glad I stayed, because the next day, I found something in her office drawer. A receipt. Not for a hotel or a retreat, but for a storage unit. Paid 3 months in advance. It was in her name, but under a different phone number. One I didn't recognize. The unit had been rented just a week before she left. That's when the questions changed. I stopped asking why did she leave, and started asking what was she hiding. I didn't wait long. The moment I saw the address on that receipt, something in me snapped. I grabbed my jacket, keys, and drove straight to the storage facility. I don't know what I expected, a stash of old clothes, maybe some personal journals. What I found was a neatly organized unit, with boxes stacked like chapters of a life I didn't know my wife had been living behind my back. The man at the front desk didn't question me. I guess when your name's on the receipt and you're holding a wedding ring in your hand like a passcode to your own heartbreak, people just step aside. The lock clicked open too easily. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cardboard and lavender. That stupid scent again. The same one I noticed on her scarf weeks before she left. I had thought it was new detergent. Turns out it was the perfume Rowan wore when she came to our house that day. The first thing I noticed was the suitcase. Not the one she took. A different one. An old navy one she hadn't used in years. Inside it was a framed photo of us from our 5th anniversary, carefully wrapped in bubble wrap. That should have been sweet. It wasn't. It was like she packed it as part of some farewell museum exhibit. Celia and Howard, the lost years. Beneath it, I found folders. Labeled. Organized. One read accounts, another plans, and the last one, exit. Inside the exit folder were documents I still don't fully understand. Lawyer business cards. Drafts of emails never sent. One note said, call Melissa Ree, Division of House. Melissa wasn't a friend. Melissa was a divorce attorney. So while I was planning our anniversary dinner and buying her a new Kindle, she was building her escape route brick by brick, detail by detail. Not impulsively, not emotionally, strategically. That hit me harder than anything. The affair was one thing. The leaving, even. But this was calculation. Cold, clinical detachment. A version of my wife I never met until I opened that folder. Then I saw the burner phone. Small, cheap, tucked inside a shoebox with a charger and a single sticky note on top. Only used for Rowan/storage. My fingers hovered over the power button, heart racing. I didn't know if I should open Pandora's box or smash it against the wall. But I pressed the button anyway. It powered on. No password. The texts were all there. Dates, times, little jokes, nicknames. Things like, can't wait to be free, and he still has no clue. One message, dated 2 days before she left, read, I'll tell him Friday. Don't worry. It'll be quick. I've already got everything I need. Everything she needed. Nothing about what I might need. Not even a flicker of hesitation. Not a question. Not a doubt. Just assurance that her exit would be quick. Like I was a meeting she needed to reschedule. I stood there in the storage unit, surrounded by her secrets, her strategies, her second life, and I felt something inside me shift. I'd spent the last week grieving a version of her that never really existed. A fantasy. A projection I created to cope with the fact that I was never the partner she truly wanted. I was the placeholder. The distraction. The furniture in a room she planned to redecorate the moment something more exciting came along. And now I had proof. Tangible, paper-cutting proof. But I still didn't know what to do with it. I left the storage unit with shaking hands and a phone full of screenshots. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was pacing. Slow, deliberate, exhausted. I wasn't angry, not exactly. That would have required more energy than I had left. What I felt was more like corrosion. Like everything inside me had been quietly rusting for years, and now the whole structure was finally falling apart. Back home, I placed the burner phone on the kitchen counter like it might explode. My house felt smaller now. Tighter. Like her secrets had soaked into the drywall. I sat on the couch and read through the messages again, searching for something. Anything that felt human. Something that said she hesitated. That she still thought of me. But all I found were details. Precision. Rowan asking, does he suspect anything? And Celia replying, not a clue. He's too comfortable in routine. That line cut deeper than the rest. She was right. I was comfortable. I liked our routines. Movie nights, weekend pancakes, her humming in the shower. I thought that was love. Maybe it was, my kind of love. But apparently, for her, it was suffocating. Predictable. Replaceable. I wanted to confront her. Demand answers. But what would that change? She was already gone. Already with Rowan. And I wasn't even sure I wanted her back. What I wanted, what I needed, was clarity. Not closure. Clarity. The difference mattered. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened our old photo albums, something I hadn't touched in years. Page after page, there we were. Smiling. Traveling. Posing in front of restaurants and beaches and Christmas trees. But I started to notice something strange. The way she looked at the camera in some shots. Too perfect, too posed. Like she was performing. And I remembered things. Little things. Like how she always wanted to take her own car when we went to events. How she kept her phone face down, even during breakfast. How she once came home from a book club with no memory of the book title. Was she already cheating back then? Was Rowan even the first? That question consumed me. So I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Sadie, Celia's ex-college roommate. We'd never been close, but she always liked me. I told her everything. Not looking for pity, just facts. When I mentioned Rowan, there was a pause. Then Sadie said, Howard, I don't know how to say this, but Rowan's been in Celia's orbit for years. They were close in college. Too close. They used to disappear together for whole weekends. Everyone thought they were a thing, but Celia denied it. I asked her why she never said anything. Sadie replied, because you looked happy. And because Celia said she loved you. I believed her. So maybe it hadn't started recently. Maybe I'd been the side story all along. That night, I finally opened a blank document and began writing everything down. Not for Reddit. Not for revenge. For me. For the version of myself that needed to understand how the person he shared a home with for over a decade could vanish emotionally long before they walked out the door. But something unexpected happened the next morning. I got a text from an unknown number. Can we talk? Just me. No Rowan. It was from Celia. I didn't answer her text right away. I stared at it for hours, rereading those 5 words. Can we talk? Just me. As if they held some secret code that would undo the last few weeks. I don't know what I expected from her, but part of me hoped it wasn't just guilt. I agreed to meet. Neutral place. A small cafe near the park where we used to walk on Sundays, back when things felt simple. She showed up late. No makeup. No Rowan. Her eyes looked tired. Older. As if the weight of what she'd done finally caught up to her. We sat in silence at first, the hum of the espresso machine filling the awkward space between us. She didn't apologize right away. In fact, she didn't say anything until I asked the question that had been burning in my throat since the moment she left. Was it ever real? Her eyes welled up. Not for sympathy, I think, but because she knew there was no easy answer. Yes, she said. At least, in the beginning. You were good to me, Howard. But I stopped being honest with myself. And when I started lying to me, lying to you became second nature. That didn't make it okay, but it made it make sense. She told me she hadn't planned to leave the way she did. That she panicked. That Rowan gave her the confidence to finally act. But the way it unfolded wasn't supposed to be so cruel. I thought I could end it clean, she said. But there's no clean way to leave someone who never stopped loving you. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just nodded. Because somewhere deep down, I already knew. I think I just needed her to say it out loud so I could stop carrying the guilt she left behind. We didn't stay long. When we stood up to leave, she surprised me. She reached into her bag and handed me a small envelope. Don't open it now, she said. But I owed you this. At home, I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. A real one, not a draft on a tablet. In it, she explained everything she couldn't say at that cafe. She thanked me for being the man who showed her what stability looked like. She said she hoped I'd forgive her, not for her sake, but for mine, because I deserved peace. I folded the letter and put it in the back of my drawer, not to forget her, but to remind myself how far I've come. It's been 3 months since that meeting. I started therapy. I picked up sketching again. I even adopted a dog, small, loud, impossible to ignore. I named her Pepper. She makes the house feel alive again. Celia's just a chapter now, one with torn edges, but a chapter nonetheless. I still think about her sometimes, but it doesn't hurt like it used to. Now, it just feels like a lesson, one I survived. That's the end of my story, but maybe it's the beginning of yours. What moment from this story hit you the hardest? Was it the burner phone? The storage unit? Or maybe the message at the end? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everything. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own confessions. This is Reddit Confessions, where the truth always finds its way out.